Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and gives this video a thumbs up. Joan Vassos, the Golden Bachelorette, is a reasonable and classy woman who appreciates her relationship with Chalk Chapel but is cautious, and if she caves and moves to Wichita, Kansas, she may regret it. Loving someone is nice, but you may also love a place. When you consider your own hometown, it is likely that it holds a special place in your heart. We all become linked to the shops, parks, and people in our communities. As a result, Joan, who is accustomed to living in Rockville, Maryland, may discover that she is foregoing one of life's most lasting pleasures in order to please her boyfriend. Wichita appears to be just as great as Chalk claims. However, Rockville has its attractions. Joan also lived there for several years with her late husband, Joan Vassos, who died of cancer. She raised children there. If she has to let go of that kind of familiarity, which is associated with so many memories, she may feel nostalgic later on. Dorothy exclaims, "We're not in Kansas anymore," after arriving in Oz and the Wizard of Oz. If things go wrong, Joan may wish she wasn't in Kansas anymore. So, she has a good man. Chalk is committed. He travels for Joan even though it exhausts him. Chalk in Joan's three-city itinerary is exceptional, and he even restores her closet. He's well-groomed and wears clothes that give him a polished appearance. He is also a successful businessman with a thriving insurance company. Chalk has 2 houses and a man cave constructed out of a storage box. However, it is not basic, it even has a mezzanine. Chalk is charming, and he may intend to entice Joan into a full-time Wichita lifestyle. He hosted a gathering where she hung around with his pals, and her smile remained stuck in place. Sure, she undoubtedly enjoyed it, but there's also pressure to fit in, and pressure to move, even if he never says, "I want you to live here with me all the time." Joan, a sensitive woman, may like the flexibility that 3 cities provide, rather than feeling confined in a Wichita version of a Norman Rockwell painting. If she moved for him, that's nice, and it may be a positive thing. Unlike many reality couples, these two appear to have a solid foundation of compatibility. Virgo man Joan, a Capricorn woman, and Chalk are a perfect match. However, their chemistry is understated, it is not overpowering. If she is not in the correct place and learns to resent Wichita simply because it is not Rockville, her ardor may fade. Joan should take her time and thoroughly research the possibility of relocating, as it has many advantages and disadvantages. She is at a mature age and understands herself. She knows exactly what makes her happy. That is a red flag, because experience has taught her what is important. If she's hesitant to relocate to Kansas, perhaps she should listen to her heart. If not, the Golden Bachelorette star may be making too many sacrifices, even for love. Joan Vassos, the Golden Bachelorette, had never been one to make impulsive decisions. A woman of grace, resilience, and intellect, she had carved out a beautiful life for herself in Rockville, Maryland, a life built on years of memories, profound love, and the kind of community ties that become invisible threads weaving through one's heart. Rockville wasn't just where Joan lived, it was where she became. It was the cozy corner coffee shop where the barista still knew her favorite order, the sprawling park where she used to walk her golden retriever, Daisy, and the old bookshop that carried John's favorite novels, some still bearing the slight creases from his fingers. It was the neighborhood potlucks, the seasonal festivals, the quiet knowing glances from neighbors who had seen her through joy and grief alike. Her late husband, Joan Vassos, had been her world. Losing him to cancer had nearly broken her. But Rockville, steadfast and familiar, had cushioned her fall. It had been a place of healing, a place where the seasons mirrored her own slow journey from devastation to new beginnings. Now, love had entered her life once again in the form of Chalk Chapel. He was, in many ways, everything a woman could hope for at this stage of life: kind, committed, lively, successful, and, importantly, attentive to the little things that made Joan feel seen. His consistent efforts, from flying across cities to fixing up her closet without being asked, were not lost on her. They touched a place deep within her that still believed in partnership, in caring, in showing up for someone. Chalk's life in Wichita, Kansas, was impressive. His 2 homes, his cleverly converted man cave with a mezzanine, and his circle of friends who had warmly embraced Joan all painted a picture of a life that was comfortable, vibrant, and welcoming. He threw barbecues where the laughter was infectious, introduced her to his favorite haunts, and made her feel like she could belong there. And yet, Joan felt a flicker of apprehension she couldn't quite extinguish. The truth was, Chalk was proud of his life in Wichita, and rightly so. But his pride sometimes came with an undertone of expectation, however subtle. When he spoke about future plans, about the festivals they could attend together in Wichita, about the ways he had made his home more inviting, Joan couldn't help but feel a gentle, unspoken pressure. She admired Chalk's ability to dream of a shared life. Still, a voice inside her kept whispering, "What about your dreams, Joan?" Joan had built something precious in Rockville. Her children still visited regularly, her friends were deeply rooted there, and her routines, those small, meaningful patterns that stitch a life together, were all centered around her Maryland home. Walking away from all of it for a man, even a wonderful man like Chalk, felt daunting. She had read once that falling in love at an older age is both more exhilarating and more frightening. There is more at stake, more to lose. You know yourself so much better, you know that geography matters, that seasons matter, that certain windows catch the light just right at certain times of day and make you feel at peace. You know that the wrong move, even for love, can leave you aching not just for a person but for a whole way of life you left behind. Joan thought of Dorothy's famous words in The Wizard of Oz, "We're not in Kansas anymore." In her case, if she moved and it didn't work out, she might find herself wishing desperately to be out of Kansas. She imagined waking up in Wichita a few years down the line, missing the lilac bushes outside her Maryland bedroom window, missing the rhythm of a town that knew her history. Missing, perhaps, a part of herself. And it wasn't just nostalgia. Joan knew that the practicalities of relocation were not minor. New doctors, new grocery stores, new routines, new winters and summers, new everything. Wichita was beautiful, yes, but would it feel like home? Would it ever carry the weight of familiarity that Rockville did? Chalk's kindness and attentiveness made the decision harder, not easier. It would be simple, almost logical, to move for someone who was half-hearted. But moving for someone wonderful complicated everything. Joan didn't want to hurt him. She didn't want to turn away from what could be a deeply fulfilling partnership. And yet, she also knew, sacrificing too much of herself, her history, her comfort, could sow quiet seeds of resentment. Seeds that would grow in the shadows of even the strongest love. There was also the question of independence. Joan had lived decades of life before meeting Chalk. She had stood on her own 2 feet through loss, heartbreak, and joy. Did she want to be someone who moved for a man? It wasn't the act itself, it was the symbolism. She had earned the right to choose a life that nourished her soul. Thanks for watching. If you likes this video, do not forget to subscribe to my channel and do not miss any update.